Shit, I forgot to take the thing down. Anyways, hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. I was not ready to do a stream. I was not going to do a stream today, but I had to jump on because there's been some breaking news that I think came out like right after the Spurs game. So I just wanted to hop on really quick and talk to you guys about it. So make sure you guys are in the comment section, letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling, all that kind of stuff. Because yeah, we have things to talk about. Let's see. On today's show, I do want to talk about this Juan Garcia thing that's come out today, as well as Ramsdale's future at Arsenal. Wolves are said to be interested, so we'll get into that. Nketiah is Arsenal are in talks with Nottingham Forest to sell Nketiah. And Moreno, honestly, you guys, there's no update on Moreno. Like, bruh. It's just moving so damn slow. You know? So there's no real update on that. But yeah, I think I want to start off with the funny that Spurs drew to Leicester just a couple of hours ago. And I had like kind of stopped watching the game because I was like, oh, it's gonna be so easy for Beckham. It's going to be so easy for Spurs. Like, Leicester look like shit, but little did I know that Vardy, the football heritage, the Premier League legend that he is, would come through with a goal, and Spurs would not be able to score a winning goal after having so many chances in that first half. That was so funny. That was so fucking hilarious. So yeah, I feel like there's almost always one Premier League or Premier League top 6 side that struggles in that first game. I was like, please don't let it be us, but it was them. Couldn't have picked a better group of people for it to happen to. So Ange Ball is off to a really good start in his second season, which he said that he always wins something in his second season. So yeah, it was hilarious. I enjoyed that a lot, not gonna lie. A successful hate watch, if you will. But Leicester should have been down like 3 or 4-0 in the first half, but that's just the Premier League for you. There's no easy games. Like, there's always a team that can hurt you, even if you think you're playing well, So yeah, it's they got done. It's a typical there's no easy Premier League games, I did think Begval, the Swedish player that they bought, looks good. I know he made a mistake and Vicario was yelling at him, but he looked like a good player. They bought some good young players, Spurs, but they didn't really solve like one of their main issues, which is not having a DM. And I don't know what happened with Bentancur, but if he's injured, then they're in a little bit of trouble here. So yeah, but I don't really give a fuck about, them. So, whatever. Blank Face Killer says, let's get it. True Gunner says, hi, Jess. Hello to you as well. H says, I'm fuming if we get a goalkeeper instead of an attacker. Errol Graham says, hello, Jess. Cy Wilder says, peace. Kwame says, Robbie from AFTV said Marino is having his medical. I mean, he was at training with, Real Sociedad earlier today. So, I mean, Errol says, Jess, are you well? You look tired. This is what you look like when you're 35 years old and you don't have on any makeup. Yes. Yes, Errol, I am tired. Yes. Yes, life is lifing. John says, absolutely fuming. This transfer window, bar Calafiori and Moreno, is garbage. So let's go ahead and get into it. So listen, whenever something happens, especially like during transfers, and Arsenal are, you know, the stress during the transfer window for an Arsenal fan is like a normal thing. It's so normal because, and I think it's almost justified in ways, because we never seem to get the one or two things that will genuinely make the biggest difference in Arsenal winning and losing, getting a trophy or not. We always seem to miss out on that one thing, or we're led to believe that the window is going to look like something and then it looks completely different. So sometimes the panic, I feel like, is a little bit justified, and then other times I think it goes over the top. Even I fall victim to the panic every once in a while. I've been pretty relaxed on the whole Eddie Nketiah thing. I think he's going to go, and I also feel like Arsenal should hold out on their valuation, because as much as we don't like Eddie, we shouldn't be selling for less. I feel like we're just too far down the road now to be selling our players for pennies, but when it comes to, the other things that Arsenal fans have been wanting, especially when it comes down to an attacker, I do feel like there is an anxiety around whether or not Arsenal are going to be able to get an attacker over the line. Do Arsenal, the club, feel like they need this player? A lot of us came into this window feeling as though we need a striker, maybe a winger, and it doesn't feel like we're close to getting that type of signing done. Arsenal were interested in Nico Williams. That has fallen by the wayside. We haven't really been linked with anybody else besides him. We were linked early on in the window to Sesko. He ended up staying, and since then it's been very, very quiet in terms of Arsenal and attackers. Now, we've been able to get a left back / left center back done, which every window we seem to be able to get our defensive signings over the line, but anything further forward of that seems to be a little bit of a struggle. We made Raya permanent. We bought Nygaard. We bought Setford. And now Arsenal are linked to Juan Garcia. And Juan Garcia may be a good goalkeeper. And yes, if Ramsdale were to go, and here's the thing that I feel like a lot of this fan base could be very, very disingenuous when trying to make it feel like, what are you worried about? You don't know shit, because it's like, oh, well, of course we're going to get a backup goalkeeper. Why would that be a problem? The problem is not that Juan Garcia would come in. It's that Juan Garcia's release clause is 20 million or 20 million pounds or 20 something million euros. And that is a lot of money to spend on a backup goalkeeper when you haven't addressed other areas. Now, if we already bought the attacker, we already had our midfield set, we were good to go. There was no questions on whether or not we'd be able to score goals in difficult moments. We had X factor. We had a balanced midfield. Then I don't think anybody would have a problem with Arsenal spending 20 million on a backup goalkeeper. But because none of that is done yet, it's building a little bit of anxiety, especially because in years gone past, we have neglected the one thing that would probably make our lives a lot easier, which is a goal scorer. And so what is Juan Garcia going to do when we're not able to score against Aston Villa? What is Juan Garcia going to do at the Etihad when we can't score a goal? What is Juan Garcia going to do at the Allianz Arena? Why is that not the biggest priority to get in an attacker? But Arsenal seem very, hell-bent on this goalkeeper makeover. But we have to also remember that, Arsenal have spent a lot on goalkeepers since Mikel has been here. We bought loads of goalkeepers. We have gone through goalkeepers. So, this constant merry-go-round and continuously bringing in goalkeepers. We bought Ramsdale. We're trying to get rid of him. We're buying, we got Runnerson, like we bought Raya, we've bought Matt Turner. Like there are a lot of, like we've done goalkeepers. And so, but we haven't really tried to reinvigorate the attack, but we're on our second iteration of a goalkeeper makeover. And I think that's where the genuine concern comes from. And I don't think anybody sounds dumb or like they're just being negative for, questioning like where do our priorities lie. And so, yeah, spending this 20-something million or whatever on Juan Garcia, which I'm hoping it's not. I hope it's a lot less, does end up becoming a little bit of a concern. Now, when it comes down to Ramsdale is being looked at by Wolves, and this came out from David Ornstein. He said Wolves make a proposal to sign Aaron Ramsdale from Arsenal, initial loan plus a buy option, plus Wolves could cover the majority of his goalkeeper wages, acceptance at Molineux that the deal will be difficult due to finances involved, but talks with AFC continue. And so, yeah, a loan with an option. I'm really not surprised. I think the damage on his profile was done last summer when, I don't care what anybody says. I feel like when, you're ousted out of your number one position and then you sit on our bench for a year as a number one, you're a hard sell with high wages. Especially because I don't feel like Aaron Ramsdale is a world-class goalkeeper talent. He's good, but he's not amazing. He's not anybody that people are going to be scrambling to make sure that they spend 20-something million on him. They're going to want a cut price deal. And so we're going to be probably loaning him out with an option that's, not the best. It would be nice to get an obligation, but I also understand that Wolves, maybe not be in a position to promise that right now. So that's where we are with Ramsdale. I do think Ramsdale needs to move on this summer. I think he needs to be out of the dressing room. I don't think he's like a toxic person, but I do think that having somebody that comes into games and doesn't perform well is not good for us. So moving him on and bringing in somebody fresh in the games where we would use another goalkeeper, it'd be nice to have somebody that has confidence. Which I think with Matt Turner at times and with Ramsdale as our number 2 last season, we felt maybe a little bit nervous when they've come in. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not I don't hate Juan Garcia. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. I just feel like the amount that it would take to bring him in without addressing the attack looks crazy. So Fabrizio Romano said Arsenal have already reached a verbal agreement with Spanish goalkeeper Juan Garcia on personal terms. He's the priority target for Arsenal to replace Aaron Ramsdale if he leaves in the final 10 days. Espanyol are aware of Arsenal interest, but no official bid yet. Depends on Ramsdale. So if Ramsdale leaves, that's who we'll get. And the reason why people are panicked is because he's, his release clause is pretty high, so, and I don't really blame anybody for being upset by it, to be honest. So let's see what you guys are saying. H says no goalkeeper, enough is enough. Oliver says it's not a goalkeeper makeover if he's a backup. The goalkeeper makeover is, getting your number 1 and your number 2 and like your future goalkeeper. We've already done that once. So it's our second iteration of a goalkeeper makeover. We had Aaron Ramsdale as our number 1. We had Matt Turner as our number 2, and whoever else was our number 3. Now our number 1 goalkeeper, this is happening in 4 years, where instead of now, because we thought we were done, we had Aaron Ramsdale, Matt Turner, and whoever was our Karl Hein. Now it's going to be Raya, Juan Garcia, and Setford. So in 4 years, that is 2 goalkeeper makeovers in 4 years. So basically, we're just spending money and not really finishing. We just need to be done with goalkeepers. It's too much, Dr. Ken says you forgot Martinez and Leno. Those were, there's always going to be people that will say that we should have just kept Emile Martinez. I'm not really in that camp, but yeah, I just feel like anybody that's trying to make it seem like this makes sense when we haven't actually bought an attacker and it doesn't feel like we're going to get one in. I do think there's a little bit of of course, everything is fine. We're doing everything right. Of course, they're doing everything right. I don't know if we're doing everything right. Do I think we're doing everything wrong? No. But do I think we're doing everything right? No. I think this constant desperation to paint the club as this, they know so much, they're so smart, is weird. So, yeah, Nuance of the Face says 80 million plus in goalkeepers without actually improving the goalkeeper is madness. I mean, we have two 31-year-olds as our CDM, CDM options. I don't think that's good squad building. You would imagine you'd only need one of them. And because you can't move one on, you can't upgrade or update in that position. We've spent like how much on left backs, and we're still trying to figure out left back. We've spent like 100 million on goalkeepers. We still don't have a clinical number 9. We don't have a backup for Saka. We have 2 strikers that we're relying upon, neither of which are particularly clinical. So I feel that there are questions around the squad building. Not everything is wrong. Not everything is right. And I think it's okay to have these conversations without standing in our corners and like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I feel like sometimes there's nuance to the conversation, but because people are only coming from their agenda, they won't listen. Like we haven't there's no way that we built the squad perfectly. There's no way we have. But that doesn't mean it's terrible. You know what I mean? So yeah, UK Arsenal says Martinez has won the World Cup and 2 Copa Americas and now is number 1 in the world. Yes, I don't think he's number 1 in the world. Nobody considers Emile Martinez the best goalkeeper in the world. He's never been considered that. He's really good for Argentina. Those are 2 completely different things. Saida says Arsenal need to stop with the loan with option to buy. It has to be an obligation. I can't deal with another player doing well on loan and not getting the money for it. Yeah, no, I get it. I get that. I don't want an option for Ramsdale, but I do think that that's the only way that we're going to get it done, if I'm honest. I think that's the only way we're going to get it done is a loan with an option. He's a very hard sell. I told you guys this the other day when people were saying, Eddie is the worst player that we have. Nobody's ever going to want him. You have a better chance of selling Eddie Nketiah in this window with a good fee than you do with Aaron Ramsdale or Reece Nelson. They are hard to sell. Like they are going to be so hard to get rid of. And so, Ramsdale, it is what it is. I don't want to dredge up the past in terms of like, was it right for us to, move past him or whatever. But equally, for us to be in a position now where a loan with an option is pretty much all we can do. And then we're going to be bringing in a expensive backup. I'd rather us go get I loved it when we had Matty Cash as our number 2. I thought that was perfectly fine. He was like on loan or free or some shit, and he didn't cost a lot. And when we needed him, he performed well. And I just wonder, what happened to just a competent backup goalkeeper that's relatively unproblematic and inexpensive? Why have we made this goalkeeper situation? I need 2 number 1s that are fighting against each other. I need one that I can use now and one I can do. It's like just get not Matty Cash, Matty Ryan. That's what I meant, Matty Ryan. Why can't we just do that? That was so simple. It was so simple. You guys know who I mean, Matty Ryan. You guys know what I mean. John says Barcelona is in a shambles. Apparently, Gundogan might make a PL return, and if he comes, forget about winning the Premier League. I mean, before he even came, before he was even available, I said I don't think we're closing the gap. Based on what we've done in the window, we haven't necessarily gotten any closer to City, so they're still the favorites. Nothing has changed. Blank Face Killer says, I think Matt Ryan wanted more for his life. Find another one. Find another one. Bruh, come on. We need another Matty Ryan. We don't need a Juan Garcia. If you want Juan Garcia, you should have bought him instead of Raya. We don't need 2 number 1-ish type of goalkeepers. I just don't get it. I will never understand the way that we have decided that the number 1 and number 2 has to be this convoluted thing. It just will never make sense to me. But yeah, especially when you think, I could understand more if we had already kind of bought the attackers and we felt like our attack was on the same level as City's, our midfield was on the same level as City's, and it was fine margins, where it comes down to the backup goalkeeper is probably the last thing that's the difference. But genuinely, we can do so many other things with our starting 11 and our backup on our field players, our like the other like non-goalkeeper players. There's so many other things that we could do before we even get to backup goalkeeper becoming the difference between us winning the league and not. So not saying that we won't still get an attacker, maybe we will, but I have seen some in the know saying that they don't think we'll go for an attacker. They're kind of already kind of putting it out there. So, we'll see. But yeah, I also don't think that it's, that, you look at the Marino and the Nketiah deal and the way that when Nketiah looks like he's going, it accelerates, and when it's not leaving, it stalls. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, Ornstein basically said it. We need a sale, most likely Nketiah, before or after the Marino deal. So those two are connected. So people that are saying that selling Nketiah guarantees an attacker, I don't think it does. But if we have 20 million to spend on something, and we could at least like put the down payment on it, or at least something, I'd rather it go to an attacker. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Because Juan Garcia is not going to score a goal against Villa next week or this week. He's just not. So it's just, yeah. But I think, obviously as a fan base, we could be quite reactionary, but I do think some of the things that we are reactionary about are valid, because I don't know a single Arsenal fan that doesn't feel like we need an attacker. And we didn't get one last summer either. I know Kai Havertz ended up being an attacker, but we started off playing him in midfield. And that's not what we were talking about when we said we wanted an attacker. We weren't saying Kai Havertz. You want somebody with X factor, So, yeah. Zach says Ford only obviously comes in if we sell Eddie and Reese. Nuances of Fate says, this is what I mean by Edu is incompetent and experienced DOF, would shut down some of Arteta's nonsense. Boy says our transfer business is poor, to be honest. I mean, it hasn't been enough to help us win the league. We've gotten close, but we've had 2 seasons in a row where we've come up short, and the business that we've done hasn't gotten us closer. So I would imagine goalkeepers and left backs are probably not the end all be all. Maybe we need to look at the attack at some stage and say, is this group good enough to get us over the line? Is working with an imbalanced midfield for a season, is that really what we want to do? Do we want to try to even that out a little bit more? Because right now it's like left back and goalkeeper is getting a lot of work, but you still don't have a winger to step in for Saka if something were to go tits up, So, yeah. William said, Jessica, I am down with the signing regardless. We need a backup goalkeeper and a good squad. Yep, backup goalkeeper we need. Doesn't mean it needs to be 20 million. Olu says, I believe we're working on our attack. The principle this window has been one in, one out. If we have to sell Reece Nelson to bring in an attacker, we're in trouble. Philip says, Timber, Calafiori, Marino incoming, but we haven't closed the gap on losing Alvarez and gaining Savinho. I don't think so. Well, I don't think, I mean, it just depends on how you think of it. I do think I'm a little bit. I thought I just heard something. I heard it again. Hold on. Hold on. Beckham? Beck? Oh my God. Come inside. Come inside. You scared me. I found him. But he drives me crazy. Every time I hear something, I'm like, is something happening? So yeah, I found him. I found him. CE says they are trying to do what? Wait. They're trying to do what it have with goalkeepers. The only thing is City got Ortega for free. That's where we're going wrong. We're looking at bargains. Come here, sweetie. Yeah, and I think it just all depends on, how close you think we are to City. I know a lot of Arsenal fans feel like the gap is not that big quality-wise with the teams. I think the gap is still there. I think one, Arteta's coaching is a big reason why we are where we are. I think our talent level isn't quite there. And I think, them having Holland, they're playing against Chelsea. Chelsea was actually playing all right. And all it took was one ball into the box to Holland, boom, 1-0. We don't necessarily have that. I think their midfield depth is better and more balanced, so maybe defensively we're kind of in the same range. I think that's as close as we can get. But in terms of the further up the pitch you go, I think the less clear it becomes, or the less close it becomes, So if you think we're just a backup goalkeeper away from being on the same level as City, fair enough. But they literally have Holland. They literally have KDB. They literally have Rodri. Savino looked like, the type of winger that we probably need. He looks great. Doku's not my favorite, but he's a good player. We're just not, we're not really as close to them as people think. You also have to remember that we only talk about the Premier League, but City at this stage can compete on all four fronts and can pretty much guarantee that they'll win at least one trophy a season. We can't even compete in multiple competitions, So I don't think we're that close to them, not as close as we think we are. And as we kind of take our time trying to get as close to City as possible, other teams are going to start to catch up to us. So yeah, I don't think backup goalkeeper is that important to me. And I feel like we should focus more on our attack. So yeah, and less about our goalkeepers. Josh says, do you think Marino is actually joining because it's past the point of insanity? Yes, I do think he's joining. I just think we need to sell Nketiah for it to happen. Akami says, Jess, you know Arsenal, but you know nothing about football. If you say Edu is incompetent, you should try and understand what it means running a football club. I didn't say Edu is incompetent. I read a comment that said that they think that he's incompetent. So yeah, that wasn't my opinion, but thank you for your comment. Sack says, the gap's not that big if they finish only 2 points above us. If you think it's just about points, then fair enough. But again, they can compete on all four fronts. They stay in every competition a lot longer than us. Like, we're 2 points behind them, basically only playing in one competition. I mean, we played in Champions League too, but I don't see it as just like 2 points. I still think we're pretty far away, but I mean, everybody drinks the Kool-Aid. They feel like 2 points and, we would have just won the league. I think the squad talent gap is bigger than people think, and Arteta's coaching has got us thinking that we're better than what we are. I just wish they'd give him a little, if we could just give him a little bit more talent, some X factor in the final third, a balanced midfield, help save Arteta from himself, get him a real attacker, a good striker, and just try that for once and see if that makes a difference, So yeah, but I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying. Mindful says, how is it madness to replace a goalkeeper with goalkeeper? Yeah, it's madness to do a loan with an option for Ramsdale and then spend 20 million on a backup goalkeeper when you haven't bought an attacker. Errol says, do you think if we sell Eddie, do we need a player up front? Jess, you're doing a great job. Do you think if we sell Eddie, I mean, yeah, I felt last summer we needed an attacker. I feel this summer we need an attacker, and I don't mean it like Kai Havertz. I don't mean Trossard. I mean somebody that can actually break into the starting 11. Probably somebody at left wing if we don't do a number 9 that has X factor. Somebody that can make something out of nothing. Somebody that can score at the Allianz Arena. Somebody that can go to the Etihad and score. Somebody that will score against Aston Villa when we're not playing well. Somebody that bridges the gap, that 5% of games where we didn't score goals last season. That's what we needed. We've needed that for a long time. We actually haven't had that player since Aubameyang's left. Aubameyang was the one player that we had where if we were playing like shit, he could at least score a goal even if we're not playing well. Right now, if we're not playing well, we struggle. We're betting on a set piece, and if one of our defenders don't save us, it's like Newcastle away, it's like Aston Villa away, it's like Aston Villa at home, it's like West Ham at home, it's like Liverpool at home in the cup. Those are too many games where you go and you're shooting blanks, so we haven't solved that. So my problem is not buying a backup goalkeeper. And I think people that are trying to reduce it to that are being disingenuous. Spending 20 million on a backup goalkeeper when you haven't bought an attacker doesn't make sense to me. But maybe if Edu explained it to me, which he doesn't have to, obviously I'm nobody, but maybe if he explained it to me, maybe there's a rhyme and a reason for it. But as just a regular ass fan, it just seems like madness to me. So yeah, O'Malley says, how can you not trust Edu after we beat City to rise? We just need to wait and see. This is clearly a weird window. I don't know why people can't see that. I think it just, O'Malley, what it comes down to is that, yeah, we beat City to rise, but City still won the league. In the end of the day, we have to want to win trophies. And the question has to be like, not are we going to beat somebody to rise, or are we going to get instead of losing to them by 2 points, is it going to be 1 point? Are we going to win the league? Are we going to win something? And so do we trust Edu to get us to the point where we're winning trophies? I don't think you can say 100% you trust him there. Can you trust him to rebuild the team and get us to a point of challenging? Yes, but we know that's where we are. We know we're challenging, so we're asking new questions. And the margins are incredibly fine now, and this window, when the window first started, we were supposed to bring in a defender, an attacker, a midfielder. Like we're supposed to bring in those 3 things, so we're expecting to still get them 3 things. That's all I'm saying. I think we're kind of like beyond, the conversations about like Edu did a really good job rebuilding a club that was on its knees. Of course, like we need to win a trophy this season, guys. And yeah, like we're talking about transfers, but the reason why we panic about transfers is because that is our opportunity to bring in players that are going to help us win trophies. So it's all connected. We all know we need an attacker deep down. Anybody who doesn't think we need an attacker, I do think is lying to themselves. So yeah, I can see why people are panicking a little bit, because Juan Garcia, from what we know so far, unless it changes, you never know. And we can negotiate outside of a release clause. I know that. But equally, I don't think the team that he's coming from are in any rush to have to sell him anyway. So why would they, the season has already started. Why would they give him to us for less? You know what I mean? So, just because you can negotiate outside of release clause doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get him for less just because we want him. So yeah, like maybe they know something we don't. They could know that maybe he's available for 12 million or something like that. But with the information that we have right now, even just in general, like I would just love to hear about an attacker rather than a goalkeeper, but that's just me. Some people think it's okay, I'm just looking at Twitter on this side just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So yeah, Boy says we didn't need an attacker until we lost Obi Martins. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't exist. Arzina says we just need to be clinical in the final third, and that we just need to be clinical at the final third, and that wins. I think you're going to say like that wins us the game, that wins us something. The problem with that though is that when you start expecting players that have been like basically not clinical for years on years on years, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. I think we kind of know what this group of attackers, I mean, I guess I'd ask you guys that, like, do you feel like, Jesus can change? Do you feel like Havertz will change? Do you feel like, that there's something that we're missing that we're not counting on? I do think that there's always an element of the players will get better. But I think fundamentally, like, the kind of like they can get marginally better on either side. They can get like marginally worse or marginally better. But I think ultimately, like, there'll be a cap there at some point, and then you need to buy somebody that's better. So if we're expecting two center forwards who we know when they were at Chelsea, we know when they were at City, were not clinical, and they were there for years and they played in the Premier League, if we're expecting them to just turn up and be clinical now, I do think that's a little bit like, that doesn't mean that they're bad players. I think both Jesus and Havertz are good players, but I think we know what their limitations are, but that could change. Maybe I'm just being cynical. But when it comes to strikers, usually either have that in your bones or you don't. You don't, so I don't know. Maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll change, and Jesus will score 20 goals, or Havertz will score 20. I actually think Havertz could score 20 goals, but even with that, we're still going to need more than that. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, of course we need to be clinical. We've been talking about needing to be clinical for about 3 years now, but we're not buying players that are clinical. So how does that help us? I think the one player that continuously gets better every single year is Saka. I think you can count on Saka to get better every season because his level, his ceiling is so high. But beyond him, I can't count on anybody else getting so much better. Havertz still a little bit of like what could he be in a good environment? So I'm hoping that he has a 20 goal per season, or 20 goals in him for this season. We have questions around, I think, Jesus and Martinelli. And those are two key players. They're not like Nketiah and Reece Nelson, who we're not relying upon. Those two need to have big seasons. So I would much rather us not risk it and bring somebody in. That'd be great, but maybe Juan Garcia can score a couple goals. Rizwan, thank you so much for your super chat, says, do you think we have a God-given right to compete for the Premier League against one of the greatest teams of all time? I really don't agree with you on a lot of your points. We are very close. Anyone with eyes can see that. I mean, listen, I don't think we have a God-given right. I'm not saying, I'm not even somebody that says that. I feel like we have to, like, we're supposed to win it this year. I don't think we're favorites, and I think City are still the favorites. We're close, but we're Arsenal. We're close to winning the Premier League, but we're not close to winning the Champions League. We're not close to winning multiple trophies in a season. We're not competing on all fronts. Like, our standards are, like, I think very low for a club of such great stature. So, being close to winning a Premier League 2 seasons for me is a little bit like, okay, that's great, but we should probably expect more than that. So you can disagree with my points. That's fine. And City are a hard team to beat, but City being good and winning the Premier League the last 4 years didn't really stop us from winning an FA Cup, didn't really stop us from winning a Carabao Cup. It's this whole excuse that City is so good that it means that it makes sense that we haven't won a trophy in 4 years. And like, our decisions in the transfer window are just is what it is. It's fine. It's great. It's just going to all work itself out. I think it's a little naive, but listen, everybody has an opinion. You don't have to think the same way as me. A lot of people disagree with my points, but, I don't think we have a God-given right, but I think we have the right to question whether or not what the club is doing is enough for us to actually win the Premier League. Being close to it is not winning it. It's not a trophy to lose it to City twice. We're not even pushing them to 100 points, guys. They don't even have to get to 100 points, So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. Just, I don't know, Sai says, hope for more, expecting just makes you mad and changes nothing else. Josh says, our fans act like employees of the club as opposed to fans. The thing is it depends on what day it is, but some people call me like, oh, you're just another league gunner. And then on the other day, people are saying I sound like an employee. But that's because I feel like I'm very honest about, like, if I think this is right, the club is doing this right, I'm going to say it. If I think they're doing something wrong, I'm going to say it. I don't think it makes sense to spend a lot on a backup goalkeeper. And I think if we don't buy an attacker, it's going to be very difficult for us to win the league. But I do think we've done some right things. Like, I think Calafiori is going to be a good signing. I think solving left back was important, So I think people can be a little bit dishonest on each side, because they want to have their narrative and stick to it. But it depends on whatever day it is. People will say I sound like an employee. I just feel like right now, the goalkeeper thing, I'm a little bit more of a league gunner on this one, and I'm okay with that. Local says, you say 100 points like City. I've done that more than once. We're not even pushing them close to it, though. There was multiple seasons where City and Liverpool were at like 90-something points. So you guys know what I'm talking about. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I know it's hard to hear. I know it's not nice to hear. But the last 2 years when we challenged for the league, it's not like we were pushing them like Liverpool were. It's not the same. Just challenging for the league is not Arsenal. Arsenal is not about just challenging for the league. That's not the end all be all. We should be always challenging for the league, but we should also be challenging for FA Cups. We should be also getting in the latter stages of the Champions League. There's quite a ways to go. And City do that every year. So even if we are close to them in the league, we're still nowhere near them in terms of competing on all four fronts. So I'm just trying to paint a clear picture. We're not shit. We're not the worst team in the world or anything like that. But I think our standards are really low. Olu says, I like the points you made earlier about knowing the limitations of our players. Would you rather a winger or a striker with that in mind? I mean, I hate saying this just because, like, I know some people really like this player a lot, but I think if I had to go for something now, I would go for a winger because I feel like the limitations of our wingers are very clear. And the way that we play, Arteta plays with facilitator like nines. That's what he's always done so far at Arsenal. All of his nines have been facilitators. So Aubameyang moved out to the wing, Lacazette through the middle because he's more of a facilitator. Martinelli probably is a striker at heart, moved out to the wing, just like Aubameyang, so that he can play a more facilitator center forward. Jesus, facilitator. Havertz, facilitator. So he's not super concerned about his number 9 being like the main forward or like the main striker or the main goal scorer, but his wingers are the most important players in the front line. The best we ever looked as an attacking force was the year where both Martinelli and Saka were on fire. Now, since Martinelli has fallen away, I feel like we're missing something on that side. And I'm not 100% sure that it's just going to come back just because Moreno is in or Calafiori is in. I think Martinelli is finding it difficult to go to the next level. And so instead of assuming that it's going to happen, I'd rather us bring in a winger just in case Martinelli does not get back into form. We don't have to worry about it. I love Trossard. I love him down. You guys know that. But Trossard should be a 5th, 6th choice at Arsenal. The fact that he's so high up the pecking order is more of like a dark mark on our starters than him. He was brought in as like a makeshift or like a last ditch option when we couldn't get Mudryk, but he plays a lot more than he should. And I think that's because Martinelli is really struggling now. I am a little concerned that I feel like Martinelli is not looking like Martinelli of 2022, 2023. That could change, but I'd rather not risk it. We're already risking it with Jesus being the backup to Havertz. I wouldn't want to risk it with Martinelli. So I would go for a winger, knowing that we're probably more set up for our number 9 to be a facilitator, but we're not set up for one of our wingers to have a poor season. We're just not built for that. So yeah, I'd buy a winger. Plus, strikers, the market is ass. Like the market for strikers is so bad. Like, but the winger market is not amazing either. But I feel like you could actually find somebody with some a skill set that we don't have in our front line. So yeah. It doesn't mean I hate Martinelli, but I think it's okay to maybe not rate players as high as other people do in the fan base. That's fine. If Martinelli turned around and slapped me across the face with a 20, goals this season, I would be so happy to take that slap to the face. So happy. I liked life a lot more when Martinelli was scoring 15 goals, So yeah, A said Pep, Klopp both highly rate Martinelli. What do you want about? Listen, I'm just going by what I'm seeing. Them rating Martinelli is not going to make him score 20 goals this season, is it? So that means like nothing to me. Really, their rating, it means nothing to me. So says Havertz is a 20 goal season striker. Hopefully he does it. You can't, but I mean, even if he scores 20 goals, other players have to score as well. So, he can score 20 goals. Like me and my friend were doing the math earlier today. Like even if Havertz does get the 20 goals, because we put him down for 20 goals, other people still need to score. Martinelli cannot have like 8 goals. Like he needs to have more than that, So that's all I'm saying. But I would love to see us linked with an attacker as soon as possible. That would relieve so much stress. The goals are just, it's so important to be able to know that like you have weapons on the bench to score goals against the Villas and stuff like that. If things don't go right, if, even in Champions League, especially where we looked especially blunt in Champions League, in the knockout rounds, we looked so bereft of any sort of ideas because those patterns weren't working. Our patterns of play weren't working the way that they do in the Premier League. We were struggling to have answers in that final third. It'd be nice to have somebody else there with that little bit of X factor. And yeah, maybe Martinelli has it and maybe he switches it up, but I feel like it'd be a real risk to just assume that Martinelli is going to go back to 2023, or 2023, and so will Jesus, So yeah, Local Jen says, if I know Pep is cheating, then I know who really won those titles, Arteta and Klopp. Blaze says, Jess, I get what you said. We need to be honest, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation. But I mean, this is the thing too, like, if you like Martinelli, what I'm saying sounds like blasphemy. It sounds like blasphemy. It sounds like I'm just hating on him to hate on him. But, I'm just going by what I see. Like, maybe I need to get my eyes checked, but Martinelli doesn't look like a player that's going to get 15 to 20 goals this season. And that's what we need from our wide player. And so until he looks like that, I'm going to feel like if the window is open, we need to make sure that we bring somebody in. Because don't nobody want to see Trossard starting a bunch of games. No one likes Trossard. Nobody wants Trossard to start. So you don't want Trossard to start. And Martinelli's not looking like he's going to score 15 to 20 goals this season, which is what the requirement would be. Then we need to be in the market looking for an attacker. That's all. D'Angelo says Martinelli beat City. I mean, he scored the deflected goal. Cool. It's like, okay. I mean, if that means, did he have a good season last season then, Philip? Not Philip. Who said it? D'Angelo. Did Martinelli have a good season last season? Does that goal that he scored against City, the deflected one, make it mean that he had a good season? Come on. And the thing is I'm not saying that Martinelli is finished. I didn't say that. Anybody who's going to say that, that's what I was saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, assuming that he's going to go back to his 2022, 2023 form, I think is risky, and it's not something that I would do. I would make sure that I brought in somebody. So if Martinelli doesn't come back into form and is not looking like somebody who's going to score 15 to 20 goals, then we have made sure that we brought in somebody. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's finished. I'm not saying he's shit. If you hear that, that is your emotions talking, not me. I don't see 15 to 20 goals in Martinelli this season so far. And that's what's required. So go buy someone. So yeah, it says, Jess, you don't understand that Martinelli scored against City and Liverpool. We can never replace a player like that. I mean, listen. I mean, all right. We can never replace him. I think some of these conversations are gonna let's see how we feel in January. If you guys are begging for an attacker in January, then I know I'm right. I know I was right. Because that goal where Martinelli scored against Liverpool was a massive mistake from Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. Still a goal, and it was great, but it's not like he did anything miraculous, to score that goal. And the Manchester City goal was deflected. He scored 8 goals last season, 2 of which you could say there was a huge element of luck, 2 of which against a really bad Crystal Palace. When we came back and played Crystal Palace and we beat them 5-0, they were on their knees. So all I'm saying is if you add context to it and you just compare his performances from 2022, 2023 and last season, I don't think you can really argue that Martinelli's levels have dropped off. So regardless to the Man City and Liverpool goals, which are great, I would not risk the season on him getting back to his form. That's all I'm saying. DV says Arteta is a very stubborn coach. If we lose the Premier League this season, he should get the sack. I mean, you can't get 3-4 goalkeepers in a window, not get an attacker, and then not win the Premier League. Especially if we have games where we don't score goals and we're struggling to score goals, it's just going to look bad. If I was Arsenal, I would prioritize the attacker. But I also know that there's people that feel like there's no point in getting an attacker if you don't get somebody that's £100 million, superstar signing. We have Nketiah and Reece Nelson on our team still. It wouldn't take much to upgrade on them. It really wouldn't. It's not we can't get him now. Kudus at £38 million is not £100 million superstar signing, but would he have been really good for us? Absolutely. So you don't have to spend $100 million. We're not at the position now where the only type of signings we should be bringing in are superstar elite. I don't even think we're there. Not with our attack. Defense, yeah. If we're gonna bring in a new defender, they need to be special, because our defense is done. It's mustard. But in attack and midfield, baby, we are not in a position where we could just be well, if it's not Rodrigo, we can't get him. If we're not going to get, Salah reincarnate, we can't get him. If he's not, what's another example? If he's not another Harry Kane, we can't get him. Bruh, Bakayoko would make us better. We're not there yet. We can't just be out here thinking that we're something that we're not, bring in someone. Pelza says that Lookman guy, I don't know why I feel like Arsenal may go in for him. I don't know why, to be honest. I mean, we've been linked to him today. We're linked to him today, but I think he's waiting on PSG, so yeah, we probably won't get him. So yeah, Saturday's equals you says the striker market is pretty dry right now. Hopefully Arsenal come up with something. Get a winger. Go to Brighton and take one of their many wingers. They have 10. Take one. Go get one. We have Reece Nelson. and Nketiah. So upgrading on them is not that difficult. Blaze says, our fan base don't like the uncomfortable conversation when it comes to favorite players. We are very emotionally attached to our players. Last season, it was Ramsdale. This season is Martinelli. And my thing with Martinelli is not so much that I think that he can improve. It's not so much that I think that he's ass or that we need to sell him. I just feel like we are putting a lot of trust in him and Jesus getting back to the form that they had in one season. Jesus was like a 3-month period where we saw a player that was like super special, so there's a lot of trust being put into players getting back to a form where it's like, if they don't, then that's a lot of pressure on Kai Havertz and Saka to score a shit ton of goals, and we know that Jesus is not a clinical goal scorer. We know that. So to not just address it with another really good attacker just feels very stupid to me. But maybe tomorrow we wake up and there's a link to an attacker. But that's why the goalkeeper thing is just like crazy, because it's like, get the attacker first, man. Like, where's Juan Garcia going? You know what I mean? Come on now. Local John says, my point is you're comparing Arsenal with, My point is you're comparing Arsenal with fake standards of a team which is not being legally fielded. I hear what you're saying about the Man City thing. Ace says, owners of our club never done what's right for us. Boy says, Jesus isn't going to score goals anyway. I mean, it's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just an attacker. And I know some people are like, well, these Adingras and Bakayoko's, they're not going to guarantee us the league. But what we know is not going to win us the league is what we have now, because we've tried it for the last 2 seasons and it hasn't worked. So, that's all. Moses, thank you so much for your super chat. Moses says, I've said this on AFTV twice. I don't think Martinelli is good enough, and I wanted him sold or traded in the summer. Would have loved to sell him for Nico as everyone is keep saying potential, and that's not what wins titles. And listen, I think Martinelli is very talented. But it just really comes down to, do you think he's going to score? Do you think he's going to get 40 goal contributions this season? Because that's what the requirement is. I know people don't want to hear that. I know it's like, no, he just needs to just look sharp. No, he needs to get like 40 goal contributions. That's when you don't have like the most clinical strikers. That's what you need. We don't get a lot of goals from midfield either. So it's not like we're getting loads of goals from midfield somewhere. Like, we're very heavily reliant on those wingers getting lots of goals and lots of assists. We lost him last season, and the only reason why we stayed afloat really was because Kai Havertz was moved up front. He came up with a lot of big goals, and so did Trossard. So it's a team game, but idealistically, you'd want to almost guarantee that your starter is going to score those goals. If he already had a lost season, if he does it again this season and he has like 10 goals or something like that, that's just not enough. So, and I don't think everybody that's saying that Martinelli is so great, would you guarantee that you think that, he's going to get 20 or 40 goal contributions this season? Because I wouldn't. Now, Saka, I'm pretty fucking sure Saka is going to get 20 goals and like 20 assists. He'll be really close, even if he misses out on it. Martinelli, I can't guarantee that, so it's tough, but I wouldn't sell him. I don't think I'm at the point where I feel like we should sell him. We still have Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson. They need to be sold. Like, even Jesus, I would sell before Martinelli. But do I think he should be a guaranteed starter? No, probably not. William says Jess is a female league gunner. Fair enough. It's either Leanne Gunner or an employee for the club, one or the other, depending on what we're talking about. Saturdays equals you says, I don't think Martinelli will get 40 GA. No, sadly, no. Josh says Martinelli also doesn't seem as big in his body as previous years. Sayeda says Martinelli should be a winger with the most goals because I see Saka more as a creative winger. who also chips in with goals and creates a lot. I mean, listen, I agree with you. I think Saka and Odegaard in particular, I think are more suited to being creative, and they're been given roles where they're also required to score a lot more, which is fine. You should always expect more of your players. But I think putting people in positions where that naturally suit them and giving them roles that naturally suit them is so much better than trying to force them to be something that they're really not. I feel the way that things worked out in 2022, 2023 was almost like perfect. Saka was more of the creator. Martinelli was more of the goal scorer, but they both got goals and assists. And then you had Martin Odegaard playing out of his skin, 15 and 15, but we haven't really been able to replicate that. So it's ideal, and I hope that we could do that, but I think the likelihood that it does is it's up in the air, so I don't really know what the solution is for it. Maybe when Marino comes in and Calafiori comes in, or starts to play, then Martinelli starts to play better. I think that's our last Hail Mary with Martinelli, is that all he needs is a good left half space. Now he's down there, he's asleep, and he's like barking at something. But yeah, maybe it's the left half space, I'm hoping. Because that would solve, because if we don't get an attacker, you better fucking hope. You better fucking hope that that left half space is the answer, Burmy says, I am hopeful that with Marino as the 8, it will provide a platform for Martinelli to perform better. Pi Moyo says, I thought he played good, though. I rewatched the game. I'm sure some of you guys have rewatched the game, too. We rewatched the game with no emotions attached to it because you already know we won the game. Obviously, you have a different feeling on it. I actually thought we were good for the entire first half, really dominant. We slowed down in the second half. They had a good period for about, let's give it 15 minutes, where they didn't really test us, but, they had a lot of territory and stuff because we really couldn't win the ball back. We weren't really controlling. And then once Zenchenko came off and Timber came on, we kind of went back to normal. But I don't think Martinelli was terrible in that game. I don't think he was terrible in that game. The problem is that he still looked very similar to Martinelli of last season to me. So, because if you go back and watch, and I've done it, I've gone back and watched games from 2022, 2023. What we're watching now is like a shell of that person, and is also a shell of the Jesus from that back then, by the way. Go and watch Arsenal versus Leicester in the 2022-2023 season at home where we won 4-2. And tell me that these players that we're watching now are not miles different than those players. And in order for us to justify not getting an attacker, they would have to become those players again. And they don't look like that yet, so I don't think Martinelli played poorly, but equally it's like, yeah, but the goal is not for him not to play poorly. The goal is not for him to just play good either. He needs to be one of the best wingers in the Premier League. That is the requirement. All of City's players, basically, not all of them, but let's say 90% of their starting 11 would be considered top 1 or 2 in their position in the league, top 3. That is the requirement. Martinelli needs to go back up the list. I don't know if you can say right now that Martinelli is one of the best left wingers in the league, and that's the requirement. And those are the fine margins. And that's why when people are like, well, are you saying you shit? I'm like, no, I'm not saying you shit, but not being crap is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about is the margins are just it's just a couple of percents, you know what I mean? So yeah, he was okay in that game. He wasn't even awful. He wasn't bad. It wasn't anywhere near as bad as what people were saying. You know what I mean? But it's still not good enough. Rizwan says, I'd love to sell Martinelli and watch him become a top winger at another club. Smells like a Serge Gnabry situation while we go buy another Pepe. Scapegoat syndrome is strong here. It's fair enough, Some days I cannot wait for the day that Odegaard leaves us and then, he goes and he wins tons of trophies somewhere else. And then people realize that their agendas against him don't make sense. I feel the same way when somebody is saying something that I don't like to hear about my favorite player. So I get it, and Martinelli I think Martinelli could potentially be more successful at another club because the way that we play doesn't necessarily suit him all the time. And so it could just be the case that the way that we play doesn't suit him anymore because the football that we play now, 2 years on from the season where he scored 15 goals, is different. We have a different center forward. We have a different midfield. Everything is different. Teams know us now, so they're ready for us too because we were pretty much like a surprise in that season. So it could just be the case that the football that we play doesn't suit him. And that would not surprise me either, considering he's not an Arteta signing. And so it's no surprise. Arteta wanted to buy Mudryk. He's interested in Nico Williams, well, players that primarily play on the left. I don't think Arteta is as committed to the Martinelli thing that some of you guys are, and I don't think he builds the left-hand side to support him. But hopefully Marino and Calafiori come in and help that. But I totally get it. When somebody's saying something about a player that you really like, it's you just want to you're just what is she talking about? She just hates him. She doesn't know what she's talking about. That being said, I stand on what I said. Martinelli, he needs to improve, and we talk about players that was the problem I had with Emile, was that not even just Emile. It's because not Emile. It's the Emile fans, was that they were speaking about him as if he was we were still in 2021, but he scored 10 goals in one season. That was 3 years ago. He hasn't scored a goal in 2 years, but they were holding on to the memory of what he was 3 years ago when the football was different, when we were doing different things, it was just different time, and I think sometimes we get stuck, but, Martinelli will probably most likely get another season, probably very unopposed, because Arteta, I don't think he likes Trossard that much. He'll do anything not to play Trossard, so Martinelli's not under any threat. So he'll get pretty much a whole season with, starting and new left midfield and new left back. So we'll see, but in January, baby, if you guys come up and you guys are like, oh, we need another attacker, I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to hear nothing. Local John says there is only Doku and Trossard better in the league. A says Martinelli is a striker. He's wasted on the wing. New Music says the Saka Martinelli combination can still be effective, but I felt like Martinelli, needed to push somehow. Trossard has done that a bit though, although he hasn't improved because of it. Yeah, this is 2 seasons in a row where Martinelli has had a suspect preseason and still started the season. So, and Trossard, especially not last summer, not this past summer, but the summer prior, had a really, really good preseason and still didn't start the season. So Martinelli is pretty unopposed for his position. If he's fit, he's probably going to start. And so he'll get every chance that's available to him to become the player that people think he is, but I'm telling you now, he has to get close to 40 goal involvements this season. That's going to be the requirement. It's the best teams, if they rely upon their wingers, they need to be producing at a super high level. And so it's not about whether if he's not a bad player. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, he's leaving a lot to be desired right now for me. Philip says, Jess, I can see a Coman, Sterling coming in on loan. This would put us in prime position for Isak, Rodrigo, William, Sesko, and a marquee replacement for Partey Jorginho next season. And I believe in, if you can't get your marquee signing, that's fine. Don't waste money on somebody that you don't feel like can fill that marquee position, but you can still improve your squad by attacking another profile or gap in the squad or whatever. That's what we're doing with Marino. Marino reminds me so much of the Kovacic signing for Man City. Not exactly what they wanted. They wanted Rice. Rice was going to be a marquee signing for them, but they couldn't get him. Instead of just leaving their squad with nothing, They bought in Kovacic, who can kind of play 6, can play 8, is a different profile than the other midfielders that they have. Now they have if they want to add somebody, Kovacic doesn't block them, because he's not on super high wages and he's not, the same exact profile or whatever. But it just added a little bit of something. That's what Moreno's going to do for us. He's not going to make it so that we don't need to bring in a top quality midfielder next summer, but he allows us to improve the team without blocking anything in the future. I think we should do the same thing with the attack. Like you're saying, I feel like we cannot go through this window and not bring in an attacker, but that doesn't mean you have to bring in somebody that blocks us from bringing in the Isak signing next summer, And so I don't think it's an excuse, that you can't get your marquee just not to do anything. We're just not in a position to stay stagnant. We're just really not, So let's get somebody. Tiba says saying Sterling in a text is disgusting. A player on the decline from Chelsea. Why should we help them? Chosen One says, Jess, in your opinion, does Saka take the leap this year? If he does, I think Arsenal have a really good shot at the Prem. If anything, I think they will if he does. Saka, he is not even just think. Saka had no preseason, played almost every game for Arsenal last season, and was in and out of injuries, I think he played every game for England in the Euros, had no preseason and came in and still was our best player and contributed a goal and an assist with not being fully fit. Saka is I can feel he's going to have a good season this season. You could just feel it. You can see he has the bit between his teeth. He's read the comments. He doesn't like who he's being compared to. Saka is getting better every season. So yeah, I don't think it's enough. I don't think it could just be Saka. I think, again, it's a team game. So you're going to have another, some other attackers doing their thing. But Saka is going to have a good season this season. I think he's going to hit 40 goal contributions this season. I think he could get 20 goals and 20 assists. I think he can. He takes all of our penalties. He takes a lot of our corners on that side. He is going to reach those numbers. He's just so good. He's just so good. And you could just tell he's not angry. He's not angry, but he looks motivated. Foxy says, keeper thumbnail, what's happening with Ramsdale? Glad to know he'll be nowhere near the Northeast with the team. Possibly going to Wolves on a loan with an option. And enjoy Isak while you can. Count your days, Foxy. But I think Ramsdale loan with an option, potentially going to Wolves, and then Arsenal have already agreed personal terms with Juan Garcia. And that looks like the move that's happening. So, and I'm melting down over it. So welcome. Josh says, so Fabrizio baited us all and pinned a Merino team without announcing here we go. It's not done yet. He said it's very close, but as I've and I could be wrong, but I feel like Ornstein pretty much confirmed that in order for Merino to get done, we need to sell Eddie either before or after. So I really do think that we need to if Eddie goes soon, then oh my goodness, I'll read this to you guys in a second. It's not really Arsenal related, but Eddie goes, we get Merino, and so it's ESR and Calafiori were connected, and Nketiah and Merino are connected. One in, one out. PSG have made a 20 million euro offer to Palmeiras for Colombian midfielder Richard Rios. The Brazilian club must now make a decision. I am so annoyed by that. I'm so annoyed by that because not that I want him, but it's they bought Ugarte. They're going to send him over to Manchester United to rot. But they're so fucking greedy, PSG. They will not stop signing players. Like, it's just like, bruh, relax. Relax. You've signed so many players already. Do you need more? Do you need more? Like, I mean, I'll be seated. I want to see PSG. I want to see Vitinha and João Neves play together. Like, I want to see that. But at the same time, it's just like, how much more do you need? You know, they already bought that one Brazilian DM. Now they're trying to get Richard Rios. They're fucking greedy, PSG. They're fucking greedy. Let's see. Do you want to see some like scouting on Juan Garcia? Do you guys give a fuck? You guys want to see it, the backup goalkeeper, what he's got to offer? Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Because we're getting this goalkeeper. Trust and believe. You guys know. You guys know we're getting this goalkeeper, so let's look. Gotta make sure like no weird porn or anything pops up, because like Twitter is like a cesspool. You're just going down the timeline and you just see ass cheeks all over the place. It's just like, bruh, like, don't nobody want to see that shit. Okay. So let's see if you guys can see it. Yeah, you guys can see it now. Okay. So let's look at them. So this is Juan Garcia. And this is Ray. So let's see. I'm like, clean sheet percentage 99%, clean sheet percentage 97%, goals against 99%, save percentage. So his save percentage is higher, which would make sense. He's probably not playing with that good of a defense or same level as defenses. It's Raya. One thing that does stand out is the crosses stop percentage, which obviously they're gonna want to stay the same. 99% for both Raya and Garcia. This crosses stopped, and then defensive actions outside of the penalty area. Raya has 85%. Garcia has 88%. So they're like fucking twins. They're like twins. Except for he plays in a shittier defense, so he has to save more. But, you know. Oh my gosh. They're so obsessed with goalkeepers. Sick. It's illness. Oh my God. Yeah, they're pretty much the same. Local says trophies are not individual efforts, hence why Ronaldo doesn't have a World Cup. Jagoon says, is that guy supposed to be a succession plan for Raya already? Yes, I mean, I think that's what it is, you know, because he's younger, which is cool. Like, I don't mind us getting this guy. I just need us to be serious about getting an attacker. Like, it just is just throwing me off, man. It's just throwing me off. He's 23. He plays for Espanyol. Do we need this right now? Is it just so important, man? Do we need it? Do we need it? Foxy says Rios deserves his Europe move, but it seems complicated for him to get clear game time at PSG. Why do they keep going there? I just feel like these teams that have like millions of players playing in the same position, why do people keep going there? You know what I mean? Like, why would you keep going there? So weird. But yeah, I guess it's like Paris, you know, or some shit. But I wouldn't be trying to go there. Sliced bread says Saka's trajectory was not scarier than Ronaldo's at 23. Ronaldo won a Ballon d'Or, scored over 30 league goals, and broke the transfer record and went to Real. I'm not, you know, I know some of you guys are comparing them, but I just think Saka just looks like he's going to go to another level every season. I think not being fully fit last season hurt him, but he still put up good numbers, you know, so just imagine if he is fit, you know. Burmy says it feels like a scramble at the end of the window, weeks to sign Calafiori and Marino, and now Rambo, Eddie, Reese to go in 10 days. Rambo, loan with an option. Eddie, hopefully to Forest for 25 to 30 million. Reese, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with you, buddy. I really don't. So yeah, Alejandro says they are doing what we are not doing. Oh, you mean PSG, like being greedy? See, I don't really want us to be greedy. I want us to buy the right players in the right positions. I don't think you have to be greedy for that. Like, I think it's greedy to have 3 DMs. I think we're being greedy with our DMs. I think having Jorginho, Partey, and Rice is too much. Like, I think it's nonsense. You know, I know some people, oh, well, it makes sense. It doesn't. Most teams have one clear DM that they trust, like a Rodri, you know, and then they have one guy that can do a job there if shit goes left, you know. Like, that's why Calvin Phillips, he couldn't get a game at City. Not only is because he was fat and out of shape, but because Rodri was always fit. You know, Rice, if Rice played in the 6 all last season, no, Partey and Jorginho wouldn't get a game. So no, it doesn't make sense to have Jorginho and Partey. It's fucking greedy. Having Zinchenko and Calafiori and Timber and Tommy, you know, that can all play left back, that's fucking greedy. You still have Tierney on the books, you know, so we're greedy. We're just not like, I would rather us get balance, you know, balance and fill in those gaps in the squad that we're missing a clear profile instead of having a build up in one position, you know, build up at left back, build up at DM. Like, can we shift that around a little bit? That's why I'm so happy we're getting Marino, because I am sorry, but I need an 8. I need an 8. I need an 8. And Marino, I know that people are not excited about the signing, but like, for real, the reason why Sociedad are playing such hardball is this is like losing for Sociedad. This is like losing Rodri for them. Like that level of player for them. Sociedad to be like a not mid-table, but like upper mid-table team, to have players like Zubamendi and Marino in their team is like priceless for them, because they won't be able to re-recruit that level of player. That's why they're playing such hardball. That's why they were not trying to have Zubamendi leave. They won't be able to replace at the same level. Marino in La Liga is considered a very, very top quality midfielder. So I know in the Premier League, don't nobody give a fuck. They're like, I don't remember him. I'd never heard of him. He's shit, you know, but he is going to change our lives. We have been struggling in midfield for so long. You guys, when we get a number 8 that can just fucking midfield, oh, the chills. I'm getting chills. It's going to be so nice. It's gonna be so nice. I don't have to see Rice in the 8. He can drop back to the 6. It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait. Woo! You guys, I can't wait. I can't wait. Ify says, I like Moreno. The skeptics will be shocked at how he'll adapt to the team. I've been saying this though, like, no, it's not the best explanation, but the easiest way that I can put it is Spain are dominating internationally at every level, from the Euros to, you know, their first team, all the way down to like the under 17s. They're dominating. Where do you think those talents play? They play in La Liga. Spain are producing really good midfielders at a rapid rate. Just because you don't know them, which there's tons of players in the Spain team that are not household names, but they were whooping everybody's asses, weren't they? Spain has so much talent in midfield. It's outrageous, you know? So just because Marino didn't start, it just means he wasn't the best partner for Rodri. Fabian Ruiz was the perfect partner for Rodri for that tournament, you know, but that doesn't mean Marino's shit. Zubamendi, he stepped right in and they didn't lose a step. You know, they have an obscene amount of midfield talent, and Marino is just one of them. You know, he's just not like a sparkly name. He's not on, you know, Brazil Scout where people are fucking like getting off on the comp. Like, he's not that player, but he's technically good. He's good in duels. He's aerially sound. He's just a really, really good midfielder. And I kid you not, like the way people love Xhaka for doing very simple shit, you're going to love Marino. You're going to love Marino. And he's not young either, which I don't think we need any more young players in this team. I think we have enough. 28 is the perfect age. He's going to give us 4, maybe 5 good years, and he won't stop us from doing anything. So, yeah, I like him. He's not the fastest, but, people that are like, we need pace in midfield. I'm like, shut up. You don't need pace in midfield. Pace in midfield? No. I know you probably want like mobility, but not pace. Like you don't need speed in midfield. Like be fucking for real. Johan says Moreno and Odegaard played together at Sociedad, so it could be interesting for us. Already having that like relationship and getting somebody next to Rice in midfield that can lessen the burden on him having to be our like main progressor is going to help. Now I know Marino's progressive numbers are not the best, but that's because the role that he plays in his team doesn't require him to do it so much, but he can. Like he's a Spanish midfielder. He can progress the fucking ball. He's going to be good for us. Is he going to be like like signing Messi? No. But when I tell you we are struggling in midfield, like we are doing a job in midfield. Rice playing left 8 smells. It just does, guys. I'm sorry, I don't like it. I don't like it. I said it. I don't like it. I don't like Rice at the 8. I don't like Kai Havertz at the 8, and I don't trust playing either one of Jorginho or Partey for 38 games this season at the base of our midfield because they're, old, inconsistent, injury prone, whatever mix of, what I'm saying? It's just not enough, So Jason says he will ease the pressure on our players. Boom, bow. Exactly. Like, I think Odegaard has to, he can do a lot of the things that Arteta is asking him to do. But I think he has to do so much more than he should have to, dropping in, playing a deeper role. I like Odegaard in a freer role, but I don't like him in a deeper role, if that makes sense. That he's playing in a deeper role, it looks like already starting off the season, and I don't love it as much because nobody else in our team is creative, to be honest, like besides Saka. So it's kind of like you want to get him closer to the goal, but we have to have him building up because Rice is like basically playing like a striker. Like it's just too much. So I think it'll give us better balance, but it's a boring signing. It's not sexy, but he's going to blow your fucking socks off when you're just like, listen, that balance is nice because we don't have balance in midfield. It's not balanced enough. Shamaria says, I was hoping Marino could be announced by now, but he could play the Villa game. I'm worried about Partey starting against Villa. I don't think he'll be ready for the Villa game. He would have needed to be signed, sealed, delivered already, I think, today. And I wouldn't be surprised if it dragged all the way on until Thursday or Friday. But, the Villa game it is what it is. I think the thing about Villa that doesn't suit us is they have a lot of runners. And like I saw the game against West Ham, I thought they looked good. I thought West Ham were really poor, but they looked good. And they had like, I want to say it was like Ramsey, Rogers, Onana, John Duran, all out there at once. And the problem with us having to play against a group like that is that they're just going to run by us. They're going to run right past us. They're going to they have a lot of ball carriers. And I think teams that have ball carriers scare us. I don't think we're that good against them. Against Wolves, one thing that I noticed is when the likes of like Lamina or Bellegarde or João Gomez started carrying the ball, they were going right past us. They were just running past us. And yeah, like obviously we stopped them. They're not that great. But, when you think about Villa, they're a couple of levels above Wolves. We might struggle. against them if physically we're not up to the level. They just run past you, So I am worried about that. I'm worried that Arteta is going to trust Zinchenko. Arteta tends to give too much trust to certain players, and I think Zinchenko is one of them. He really shouldn't be playing against Villa. And Calafiori, I wish we would already have him integrated. I'm not quite sure why we're waiting so long. Timber obviously can play there, but I just feel like having a left footer on the left side just makes sense. And that's what we bought him for. So yeah, I worry about the Villa game too. I just think that we don't have a lot of, we don't have the legs. We don't have the legs. So I'm not sure that we'll be able to stop them, especially not at peak fitness, but we'll see. Jagoon says, I need us to fold Aston Villa. Shamaria says, I know we won't get him, but who do you think is better for us, Marino or Gundogan? I mean, you can't ever say no to Gundogan because it's Gundogan. He's a world-class midfielder. He's probably Barcelona's best midfielder. It's odd that they want to get rid of him. But I think we end up with Marino, so I want to focus on that. Gundogan is not coming back to the Premier League and coming to Arsenal. If he comes back to the Premier League, we know where he goes. So, yeah. Owen says if Marino is signed, we won't see him before the first international break as a starter. I think it's the same for Calafiori. Vincent says Arteta will use Timber against Villa 100%. Hopefully. Foxy says Onana probably comes back to haunt Arsenal fans who had nothing positive to say about him when he was linked always the way. Listen, I will take the dunk. I know it's coming, but I stand on it. If you don't like the way that Rice plays at the base of midfield, then you won't like the way Onana plays at the base of midfield. He's not the guy for us. When we get rid of Jorginho and Partey, that player that comes in needs to be a footballer. They need to be able to pick a pass. They can, Onana is going to be great for Villa. I think Emery loves hardworking runners, guys that can win duels and stuff like that. But if you think a midfield of Rice, Onana, and Odegaard makes sense, I don't know what to tell you, So I expect the dunk. I expect him to score a goal and for everybody to be, see, Jessica, we should have signed him. But just because somebody's good for another club doesn't mean that we should have signed him. Like, my goodness, if you didn't like the way we couldn't build up with Rice in midfield, at the base of midfield, then Onana, he's not that for us, but he's a good player. Onana, he's great for Villa. That's a good pickup for them. Marino, I think, will lessen people's desperation for another physical being because Marino, not only can he win the duels just like Onana, not only is he aerially proficient like Onana, but he can ball, So, but yeah, I think, Onana is great for them, and I think we'll struggle against their physicality and their ability to run with the ball. Especially if you have Zinchenko and Partey out there, because I think they'll struggle physically. But I think push Rice closer to Partey to give him a little bit of security, and then make sure Zinchenko's not on the pitch, and let's go from there. Let's see what we can do from there. Chosen One says, Jess, is Marino a very creative player? I'm not as informed on his style of play. What do you know about him? So Marino is not I don't want to say he's a creative player because when people think creative, they think Ozil. They think those really creative passes. What I will say is that he is somebody that is really good at understanding where the next pass is supposed to be, and he can get it to them. So his execution of pass and his football brain are very interconnected. So have you ever seen somebody that just cannot figure out where the next pass is supposed to be? They can't do that quick 1-2 in those small pockets. They don't know what he's good at that, and he can execute the passes. So there's also people that know where the pass is supposed to go, but they can't execute it because they don't have the touch. He has those things, but I don't want to market him as a creative player, and then you'll be thinking, wow, we got Ozil and we didn't get Ozil. He's not that. But one thing he will allow is for Odegaard to be in more creative positions, which I think is important because he's our most creative player. The deeper he is, the less creative he is. So not having to rely upon Odegaard to be more of a build-up feature for us will will help him to be able to be more creative. So basically, I think Moreno is going to play the role that Kai was meant to play in midfield that he couldn't execute greatly. So yeah, Jagoon says, now we are putting Villa in a blender. It's going to be like when we played Newcastle again. We want blood. I hope so. They're going to need to have like everything that they can give. I think Villa love beating us because of the Emery factor. The media loves Emery beating us because of the Emery factor. So, you know, everything is kind of going against us in that regard. Now, last time that we played Villa at their place, they didn't even play well. You know, I remember there were Arsenal fans telling me that we got bullied, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't. They scored an early goal because they went right down on that side that Zenchenko was on, and we were not ready. And then for the rest of the game, we kept picking the ball off of them in dangerous positions. But unfortunately, as much as I love him, Odegaard could not score a goal. And I think Jesus was out there too. And he was snatching like we were ass, you know, in the final third. So it's not like they really outplay us. I just feel like we have this tendency to not be able to put the ball in the back of the net, and then we give up a soft goal or two, you know? And so if we can't score, we need to learn how to make sure they don't score too. But last season, it felt like that soft goal was always there. So yeah, if we want to put them in a blender, then we need to be really, really like ready for this game, play our way. Saliba, can you not pass it to the opposition? If we play like we did against Wolves, against Villa, they will score a couple of goals on those mistakes, you know, individual errors. We have to clean those up too. Like, it's strange that we're still a team that gives away so many chances to the opposition, I think. But yeah, Villa, they're not unbeatable, but we struggle with them. I think we struggled with them last season, I think mostly just because we had too many games where we couldn't score a goal and we became nervous and then we gave up soft goals. So yeah, Shamaria says, surely we don't lose 3 times in a row to Villa. I'm hoping Arteta has something up his sleeve. But let's just start with not playing Zinchenko. Let's start there. I think he just brings in that nervousness. He gives away too many. Like, I remember when we played against Villa at their place when we won that 4-2 when Georgie scored the goal. Zinchenko actually gave away the first goal by giving the ball straight to Matty Cash with no pressure on him. So this is like a growing thing with Zinchenko. I just feel like when you know something doesn't work, don't do it again. At home against the lower level opposition, we can pretty much win the game, even though Zinchenko makes those mistakes. As the games get more difficult, especially away from home, it doesn't work, you know, so just don't do it. Let's start there. Blaze says, so we should worry about Onana, potentially, if you want to. Diehard Gunner says, so what are we going to do with Rice when Partey and Jorginho leaves next year? Well, hopefully the Moreno signing means that we'll just smarten up and put Rice at the 6, you know? Even if you were to get like a Bruno Guimaraes, let's say you get a Bruno Guimaraes, he's not even a natural 6. I think people get it twisted that because he plays. Foxy, you can weigh in on this. Maybe you think differently, but when Bruno was playing at Lyon, I actually thought he was more of an 8. He's somebody that can play number 6, but I think his best position is actually just as an 8. I think balance is more important than the actual number. 6, 8, 10. Those numbers don't matter as much to me as balance. I think Rice would do really well with somebody that can do the things that he cannot do, whether they play as an 8 or a 6. But my biggest concern about Rice bouncing between, you know, the 8 position and the way that it's played now in the 6 position is that he's not learning any position consistently. And he's just, you know, you just have to pick a position for him, you know. But I think, Foxy, you can weigh in because you're a Newcastle fan. You can let me know if you think, you know, Bruno is more of a 6 or more of an 8 or, you know, whatever. But I view him as more somebody that's an 8, but, you know, he can do a job at 6. But, you know, if he had Declan Rice behind him, you could push him up. Foxy says, I agree 100%. Onana wasn't right for Arsenal. Good fit for Villa, but it's always the way when you don't rate a player that they end up playing a worldy game. Exactly. I'm ready for it. I know it. I know my fate. I know my fate. That's always how it goes for me. Philip says Marino, excuse me, best dueler in Europe at the moment. nearly Gabriel level aerially, looks for the killer pass like Partey, a bit quicker than Xhaka, but similar leadership qualities and left-footed. Makes sense to me. Agon says, you're ignoring the fact that we need Zinchenko for the long through balls to expose Villa's high line. You have to be more balanced towards Zinchenko. Am I not balanced towards Zinchenko, guys? One minute you guys are saying that I'm a Zinchenko sympathizer. The next minute you guys are saying I'm not nice enough to him. I understand everything Zinchenko is good at. Everything. You know, I'm not somebody that feels like he has no value to the team. I know exactly what he's good at, you know, but we don't, what he offers us on the ball does not, it's like, you know, you have pros and cons. You know, the pros of him in bigger games for what he does on the ball does not outweigh the cons on the other end in those big games. So, like I said, at home against lower level opposition, you can see more of the benefits of Zinchenko. Against the cities, against the Liverpools, against the Villas, against teams that have attackers that can really hurt you if you make those minor mistakes, Zinchenko's abilities going forward do not outweigh the cons of what he's going to give away. And so I think I am really balanced on Zinchenko. I think I'm more balanced than most. You know, I think he's a wonderful technical player on the ball. But if I had my druthers, I would not start him against Villa away from home. He can play against Brighton at home. He can play against, you know, Fulham at home. He can play against whatever, you know, mid-table and below at home. But idealistically, you know, you'd have Calafiori or Timber playing in those bigger games for obvious reasons, you know. Like, I think it's just so obvious, you know. But he's a good player. You know, I'm not saying he's shit. Okay. Agon says, Kai had 3 1v1s because of Zinchenko last season at Villa Park. He did. Yeah. I mean, I remember that game. I said when we played against Villa and we lost, I was absolutely murdered for saying that I felt like people were being disingenuous by blaming everything on Zinchenko. I thought it was really poor that we didn't score any goals in that first half because Kai and Jesus were missing chances. So I agree with you there. That being said, even if you can't score a goal, that doesn't mean you have to give any up. And I think he is a target, you know. So keeping in mind that if we may struggle to score goals against Villa, let's just say, I want to make sure that we can close the door the other direction. And so regardless if it was Kai's fault that he didn't score any goals, Zinchenko was still an obvious target for Villa. And I don't blame him for everything, but there's just too many instances of him being such an easy target for the opposition. And so I just feel it's not all his fault, and I'm not blaming him for everything, but you have to sit him out in the big games. You just have to, you know. But yeah, people were killing me for saying that. They were like, the only reason that we lost against Villa last season at home was because Zinchenko was on the pitch. And I thought that was totally disingenuous when you consider the entire first half. We dominated that first half and no one could score a goal and we had chances, you know, but equally he still got exposed, you know. So we're a team that against better sides, sometimes we struggle to score. So we have to keep that in mind. You know, if we don't score, that doesn't mean we have to lose. You know, no matter what, I get cooked. No matter what, I get cooked. No matter what, you're a Zinchenko sympathizer. No, you hate him. You know, you hate Martinelli. You hate Kai. You hate so and so. Like no matter what, it's someone that I just hate. You know. Foxy says Bruno interchanges between 6 and the 8 role, but I prefer him a little further forward as he probably is our most creative player. Interesting to see him with Tonali once Tonali returns in 9 days. So you heard it there from a Newcastle fan. And I agree with him. I think Bruno, the further forward he's pushed up, I think his best qualities show. He can do a job at 6, but ultimately, like Rice would be the better 6 when we buy Bruno Guimaraes next summer. Right, Foxy? Aha says Zinchenko at the Emirates versus Villa. First half, he actually played well, but in the second half, he was being an idiot. The game actually summed up his pros and cons. Exactly. Jude says, we bought Timber and Kivior and Calafiori for reasons in these days are numbered. Mr. Jonathan says, Arsenal can have a phenomenal golden era eclipsing City and Barcelona. Arsenal came up short last two campaigns, hoping and praying that it's third time lucky. Gabriel Martinelli, Timber, and Partey to step up. And adios. Come on, you Gunners. Fair enough. I hope we have a golden era too. Philip says, the problem is if we lose Zinchenko, we will only have Calafiori, Timber, Tomiyasu, MLS, and Kiwi who can play there. Exactly. So, yeah, I think you bought those players for a reason. Play them. We know why they're here. They're better defensively. I think even Calafiori might end up being better offensively. I think people make a point where Calafiori might actually be more of an offensive signing because of his ability to get forward and, make the crosses and stuff like that. So we'll see. Calafiori will probably take some time to get integrated, but I would choose Timber for the Villa game. But, yep, guys, we've been streaming for about 2 hours now. We talked about everything under the sun. Hopefully we get some news on Nketiah tomorrow. We get some news on Marino tomorrow. I think that they're connected. Would not be surprised. We get a here we go the same day for both. So we'll see. And then with Ramsdale, if, we loan him out to Wolves, we probably will buy this Juan Garcia, and hopefully we can at least get the price down a little bit, because regardless, I wouldn't want to pay 20 million for him no matter what, so. But yeah, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel on your way out. There's 150 of you guys watching, which is amazing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. And thanks for all the super chats. You guys are super kind. I really appreciate it. Rizwan twice and Moses, thank you so much. And yeah, enjoy your night. Bye, guys.